great coarse region in the south of France has a fascinating history, matched by a diverse and beautiful landscape. The broad horizons of the rugged limestone plateau contrast with the surrounding valleys. Steep green pastures and small tranquil villages, and the occasional chateau. From Roman times, Corse de Larzac has been famous as the birthplace of a very important cheese.
There are hundreds of blue cheeses made all over the world, but they all share a common ancestor that is made right here in Cambalou, France. This cheese is famous not just because of centuries of tradition, but because of caves that lie deep underground in the village of Roquefort.
No blue cheese is more important than Roquefort. It is one of the world's oldest known cheeses and the most popular blue cheese in France. But what makes this blue even more significant is its link with other blue cheeses, including England's famous Stilton and Italy's great Gorgonzolas. Roquefort is the great ancestor of all blue cheeses, and without its legacy, perhaps none of the others would exist today. This blue cheese is still made the traditional way using unpasteurised milk. This fundamental principle has not been compromised as the cheese-making process has adapted to modern techniques. The name Roquefort literally means strong rock, but ironically, that name is quite inappropriate. It was the collapse of the craggy limestone cliffs of the plateau millions of years ago that created the labyrinth of well-ventilated caves. These stretch along a 300-metre wide strip for almost 2 kilometres beneath the Cambalou plateau. The special alchemy of these caves is said to have been discovered by a lovesick shepherd who was distracted from his lunch of bread and fresh ewe's milk cheese. When the shepherd returned to the cave a month or so later, the bread and cheese had turned blue, but still tasted delicious. And so began the legend of the caves of Roquefort. Inside these caves, the humidity never drops below 95%, whilst the temperature is naturally maintained at 10 degrees centigrade. This is due to a system of natural breathing rock vents known as fleurines.
La montagne du Cambalou s'étant éboulée, c'est-à-dire écroulée.
Several hundred years ago, the Cambalou mountain collapsed and crumbled.
De rochers sont restés.
The cracks and slits have remained. We call them fleurines. A cold air current coming from inside the mountain runs through these cracks.
Venant de l'intérieur de la montagne.
And the cracks open into the Roquefort caves, like this one.
In this microclimate grow more than 600 types of mould, known collectively as Penicillium roqueforti. This mould was once harvested using loaves of burnt rye bread, which were placed in the caves in early autumn, at the time of the mushroom moon. And this mouldy bread was then dried and ground into a powder and added during cheese making. These days, all Roquefort mould is still cultivated on bread, but most is grown in labs using carefully isolated strains from the caves. All great cheese, Roquefort begins with good quality milk, which in this case must be unpasteurised ewe's milk. Sourced from several thousand small farms scattered across the region, fresh milk can only come from one breed of ewe. Production is strictly seasonal and limited to just 7 months of the year between early December and July.
These sheep are one reason that Roquefort is so special. They're known as Lecorne, and originally they came from the Larzac Plateau, and they were bred to deal with the very harsh conditions there. Their milk is a good balance of protein and fat, and then one reason that Roquefort doesn't have that sheepy flavour that you find in some sheep's milk cheeses.
This breed of ewe has a local reputation for being both noble and hardy.
Each one of these sheep will produce about 250 litres of milk a year, which is enough to make about 50 kilos of cheese.
This milk is produced under a strict quota system, and every farm is paid the same price per litre, whichever dairy they choose to sell to. The purpose of limiting seasonal production was developed to ensure sufficient volumes of fresh milk were available for cheese making. Any milk produced outside the quota system is used for other cheeses, and this region is responsible for producing more than 50% of all the feta sold in France. Until the 19th century, all Roquefort was made on small farms, but the development of dairies that pooled milk saw the last farmhouse operation close in the 1930s. Further rationalisation means there are now just 7 producers of varying size. The largest of all, with over 60% of the market, is Société, which was formed by a group of 15 producers in 1842. That group now convert over 60 million litres of ewe's milk into cheese every year. Their famous bee symbol and Société trademark was registered in 1863, and the brand is now the most recognised Roquefort in the world. This is no small operation. The raw milk is brought from the farms by tanker and pumped into giant vats. Once the milk has been tested, it's heated to just 30 degrees centigrade. For starter, Penicillium roqueforti and liquid rennet is added in a series of steps as the mixture is stirred using large metal blades.
The milk you can see in the tank comes from about 700 producers. The milk is received and analyzed, then it is moved in the tank, heated to 32.5 degrees. We'll add some fermatic and the rennet, and when the milk turns to curds after 2 hours, it will be cut with a machine you can see in front of the tank. After the cutting, we'll carry out a braising for 45 minutes and then send to the moulds.
After coagulating, the fragile curd is cut into small cubes and gently stirred for another 30 minutes.
Now that everything is mixed on the cloth, the whey goes through the roller and the curd is recovered. And we'll put it in the mold and we'll send the cheese to be cleaned.
In this modern dairy, the curd travels over a perforated conveyor belt that leads to individual hoops. The cheeses are placed to drain in warm rooms for 3 days. And turned several times a day. Once the young cheeses have reached the correct level of acidity, they're turned out, weighed, and stamped with the date and VAT number. Each cheese is cleverly rubbed with sea salt before being transported to the magical caves of Roquefort.
Here we salt the cheese, and after 2 days we'll salt the cheese again. We will put them in a plastic wrap and we'll send them away.
Before travelling to the caves, I visited one of the smallest and most respected traditional dairies owned by the Carles family. Fresh milk is still delivered in small churns, and Carles cheese is all made by hand. The hoops are half filled with curd before a specially selected blue Roquefort mould is sprinkled on the top, and more curds are added. This is the old-fashioned method of making Roquefort, and requires a delicate balance of skill and judgment.
On the Larzac Plateau, there are 5 walled cities that go back to the Middle Ages. 3 of them were created by the Knights of the Templiers, who originally set up agriculture in this region. That was incredibly important, because without them, there wouldn't be the modern dairy industry that milks sheep or Roquefort.
The Knights Templiers, a religious military order formed in the 12th century to defend pilgrims visiting the Holy Land. Over the following 200 years, they built up great wealth and influence in parts of France, until they ran foul of the Pope and were disbanded by the King of France. These warrior monks encouraged a system of agriculture that was in many ways responsible for creating the basis of the ewe's milk industry in this region today.
Tomorrow, with your help and with your action, Roquefort will be back in Australia. Thank you very much, Will.
And in a medieval setting, the Grand Order of Roquefort affineurs honoured me with an invitation to join their order at a special intronisation ceremony.
Today, here in this cellar in Roquefort, we can say, you are a Roquefortais. You're at home here, Will. Thank you and congratulations. Et par Saint-Georges, oui, nous faisons chevalier de l'ordre des grands affineurs.
Thank you, and I'm sure Roquefort will live for a very long time. Thank you.
Meanwhile, before entering the caves, our young cheeses must first be punctured with a series of needles. These help release carbon dioxide and provide tracks in which the natural mould will eventually grow. Every producer has their own caves, and each has its own unique microclimate. The system of maturation is strictly regulated. The naked cheeses are only matured on oak shelving. The timber in the caves can be more than 150 years old and is considered vitally important in maintaining the right environment for the mould to grow. Traditionally, Roquefort is stacked on its side in rows to encourage airflow, and it takes only 10 to 14 days before the cheeses form various shades of blue mould.
And this is where the magic really begins. These cheeses have been down here for the past 3 weeks, and the unique environment of these caves is just starting to turn them blue. If you look closely, you can see it growing on the surface. Now this means they're almost ready for the next step.
To slow maturation and prevent a surface rime from forming, the cheese is covered in a thick tin wrap. This special tin was first used in the 1900s and is perforated by tiny holes. The technique of wrapping encourages a sweeter flavour in the finished cheese. The task of wrapping has been traditionally carried out only by women, called cabineres, and their skilled hands make certain the tin fits the cheese like a glove. I asked Société's head of affinage to explain the importance of his role.
À quel moment le plus important de affinage Roquefort?
The most important time for the maturing of the Roquefort is when the cheese will be ripened. The shade of the blue will decrease. It is the most important time as the development of the taste is being created. If we miss this time, or if we have some strong and too aggressive taste, the cheese will be too salty. So we have some cheese with very salty taste, no good at all.
In order to bear the name Roquefort, all cheese must be kept in the region for a minimum of 90 days. But they are rarely kept in the caves this long. To ensure year-round availability, some cheeses are held for 6 months or longer at maturation temperatures as low as -4 degrees centigrade. The best cheeses are made in May and June and released early in the winter months. In this part of the world, I didn't have to travel far to sample some delicious Roquefort recipes. David Lassarvatat, chef of the local Chateau Crisel, offered to show me a couple of simple classics, beginning with a delicious pear and cheese tart. David begins with 2 fresh farm eggs mixed with cream. Pepper and salt are added and a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Another splash of cream and the egg mixture is ready. David then fills a pastry blind with pear slices and a few generous lumps of Roquefort. The cream mixture is poured into the mould and the tart is ready for the oven. It takes approximately 20 minutes at 200 degrees centigrade. This dish is wonderfully rich. A classic way to enjoy the king of cheeses.
So David, what have you got in here?
Just cream and Roquefort, bechamel crème and Roquefort. And I'm going to put the cream on
the mussels?
On the mussels and put in on the rolls.
Oh, that's really easy. So this cream, you make it up or you get it out of a packet?
Oh, no, I do it.
Yeah, just a straight bechamel sauce?
I do everything in the kitchen.
Oh, good, good. And where do these mussels come from?
Spain.
Oh, yeah. And how do you open them like this?
Just 2 minutes in the white wine.
Oh, yeah. And then they open up, you take the top off?
Well, yeah. And
then
just I keep half mussels.
Okay. Cool them down first?
Yeah.
And then just this very simple sauce?
Yeah. Just classic.
And how long do you put them into the oven here for?
5 minutes. Just to keep it warm and grilled.
Oh, yeah. It's just so it gets brown on the top.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really easy. And how many mussels per plate do you use?
No, 15.
15?
Yeah,
Okay.
15 for plate, but you can eat
Lots more.
yeah, that's like,
Of course.
not good.
So these go straight under the grill?
Yeah,
Like this?
not ready, like this.
Okay.
Oh.
And just 5 minutes up there?
Yeah, it's going to grill.
A nice brown crusty
Yeah,
grill across the
wow,
top.
wow.
Really simple. Wow, look at those. They look fantastic and they smell lovely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lovely smell of Roquefort and mussels together. Gorgeous. Let's plate them up and I'll try one when they cool down a bit. And what sort of wine would you drink with this?
I would drink a white wine from Languedoc, a Chardonnay or a Sancerre, but not too fruit. Too
fruity, something dry.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, lovely. Well, that sounds fabulous. You just get the wine, and I'll just sneak in one of these now.
Okay.
But I might use the spoon this, and I don't like to pick them up with my fingers. You go. Great. Thank you.
The reputation of Roquefort has always been jealously guarded, and the name was first legally tied to the caves under Royal Charter in 1411. Roquefort was also the first cheese ever to be recognised under the French AOC system way back in 1925. Its continued success has been helped by the close collaboration between the General Confederation of Sheep Milk Producers and the Roquefort manufacturers.
Michelle, you have 3 different sorts of Roquefort here.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference to me?
Yes. Here you have the originals. The original, 1863. And this Roquefort, today we sell it in more 80 countries in the world. Templas is the more strongest Roquefort with taste, mushrooms
Yeah.
taste.
Yeah, yeah.
And here you have Baragnard, and it's a very soft Roquefort
Yeah.
and very long taste, and especially made for women, we suppose.
For why? For women?
Comment dire, c'est un goût féminin, donc plus doux.
Feminine
Ouais.
taste.
It's a feminine taste. Yes.
Okay, very good. And what about this little bee here?
In the history of society, the bee, when the brand society was founded, the bee was taken as a symbol because it's a good symbol, the bee.
A good symbol? Is it there are a lot of bees around here, or you're very busy, or?
No, because the bee is a good worker.
Of course.
The network has carefully controlled milk production and cheese-making techniques since the 1920s. This has ensured that the reputation of Roquefort hasn't been compromised. But I can't help thinking that the alchemy of the caves is the real secret behind its success. Once you taste great Roquefort, it's easy to understand why it's developed the reputation as the king of blue cheese.
There are so many interesting aspects behind this great traditional cheese that its importance to France and the world shouldn't be underestimated. Roquefort is the granddaddy of all blue cheeses. It tastes absolutely wonderful. Long live the king.